Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am super excited to let you all know that I started a blog to go with these videos. So if you want to find that, it'll be in the description below, but it's www.altlash.com. So if you want, you can check those out. I only have one post so far, so I'm getting caught up with all the previous videos. Give me some time, but I should have a blog post for each video, so that way you can go and look at those posts, see all the code snippets, see screenshots of everything we've done, so that way you can reference that if you need to get any direction on what to do if you get stuck. So super excited about that. What else to start things off with? If this is your first time watching video, thank you for checking it out. This is a Build With Me series, so we are just past our 10th episode now. This is episode 11, so super excited about that as well. If you want to get caught up, check out my channel and look through all the previous episodes. We've done quite a bit up to this point, so you might get a bit lost if you haven't seen those previous episodes. So go back and watch those if you could. Let's see. In our previous episode, we were able to update our Robinhood API call. So we integrated with Spring. We have it as part of our endpoint to test our services. We were able to deploy that to AWS through our pipeline that we built out, and we were able to successfully invoke it with Postman to see our changes in within a few minutes of making them. So all that is awesome. For this episode, we're going to deviate just a little bit. So I want to come back to this service. This is all sort of happy case scenarios where it's just a valid token comes back. I want to make sure we put in some error conditions. So what happens if you don't supply a correct username and password? What happens if the service is down? Things like that. We want to make sure we handle all those exceptions cleanly in our code. So we will be going into that a bit more in depth probably next episode or episode after that. So we want to make sure that we have a good foundation to build on and make sure our application is resilient and stable for unexpected issues that might come up. So for today, I want to talk a little bit about logging. So up to this point, we've been just doing system.out.println, and that works just fine to print a console. But as we get code deployed to a cloud environment, we may need to look at logs to understand if there's an issue to dive in and fix any potential mistakes we might make. So there's a variety of ways to do that. Most everyone in Java world would use a logging framework. The big one that is probably going to be used and what we're going to use is Logback. So I was able to find this GitHub repo, and this is a library that's sort of provided by another developer that is geared towards AWS logging. And so high level, our application runs in EC2 instances. There's a service called Cloudwatch that you can stream logs to, stream metrics to, things like that. But we need a way to stream our logs from our EC2 instance to that Cloudwatch service. And this library is trying to do just that. So thank you for these developers for producing this for us. So you can kind of look here. Now I'll post this GitHub link in the description below. So just shout out to them for providing this. If you take a quick look, it uses SLF4J, which is a library that's been around for a long time. It's a logging framework, and then it uses Logback, which is sort of a framework built on top of SLF4J. And they've modified the Logback to specifically do AWS things. I guess the biggest things to look at is, and we'll do this in the code in a few minutes, but basically you get a logger, you log things. This is sort of your normal logging framework that most any enterprise level applications would have in it. So this is not AWS specific framework. It's just normal logging with a logging framework. But down here is where the magic happens. So it sets up the asynchronous logging appender that will shoot our logs out to the Cloudwatch service. It sets up the regions to connect to. It sets up how long to wait to flush the logs. So basically all your logs will stack on top of each other in a file on your system, and if it reaches a threshold and how big your block is, it'll immediately flush that out to AWS. Or if it hasn't reached that size and it's waited 30 seconds, then this will say go ahead and flush that out. You don't want to hold on to those logs forever. So this will mean all of our logs are going to be within 30 seconds of the actual time it happened in the code. And then a couple of things down here. So this uses appenders. So this will say whenever you append to standard out, then use this pattern. So it has some metadata on what time it happened, the thread it happened in, what level it happened. The level you can specify as debug, info, warn, error. Trace is one that's not really used too often. And there's one above error, fatal, I believe, which is not really used either. But you can specify the log level that you use. And then down here, you basically says what your root level is. So this will mean output anything info level or more severe. So info would be info level, warn level, error level, and fatal level. We can change this to debug if you want the debug level logging as well. So we'll append it to our standard out console, and it'll also append it to the AWS logs appender, which would go to AWS. So again, kudos for these guys to get all this set up and use this logback. So there's a couple of dependencies that they say we need to use, and it's up here. So we'll import these in our POM. We will set the logback XML file to use. We'll put some loggers in our code base to start using logging that way. And then there's a piece here as well that it needs special permission. This is an AWS specific thing. So it needs a policy that allows the EC2 instance permission to write logs to CloudWatch. And these are the specific actions that it needs. It needs to create log groups, create log streams, and then to put or write log events. This means you want to allow those things. And then the resource, this is what the target would be that it has access to. And stars are wildcards, so basically any logs, any log things in CloudWatch. So all that said, part of this, I haven't done this piece myself yet with the policy and the permissions aspect of it. So it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for myself as well with these videos. It's going to be a little bit of trial and error probably as I get this to work. So with the blog I'm making, I'm going to put in the blog the final solution on all the code snippets and all the pieces to make it work. So it's up to you if you want to follow the blog first and see a working example, or if you want to watch as I troubleshoot and try different things if it doesn't work the first time. Excellent. So, looking at time, 10 minutes into it. So I might break this up into a couple videos. One would be just getting the logger to work locally, and then another one to commit everything and get the policy and stream working to Cloudwatch. But we will see how time is doing to figure that out. All right. So let's go ahead and get the core dependency in our code. So we won't do this one quite yet until we get to the Cloudwatch streaming part. So first we'll copy this dependency to our POM file. We'll just put it on top. We'll put a little comment. Logging framework from, and now we'll copy this down, that way we know where we got this block from. Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and yank this URL out. We don't need it. So a little bit clean up there. And let's go ahead and change these to 1.8 at least for what we're compiling against for Maven. And there we go. So we should have the pieces necessary to have our logging framework. So let's do a quick sanity test and run all of our tests, unit tests, in here. So nothing should change at the moment. We imported a library, we changed the compiler to 1.8. So everything should still pass without any issues. And there we go. So everything's passing still, so nothing's been broken since our last video, which is always nice. So right now we have this print statement, and we can add some more print statements in here and fill this out a little bit as well, just to have some logging of what's going on. So what we're going to do in retrieve token is to make a logger variable. We'll make it private, static, and final. So this is going to be sort of a constant for this class, so nothing outside this class can access it. And the object itself won't change, so it can be a constant and final. So it's going to be logger, and I do all caps for constants. Let's go ahead and do Alt-Enter to import that from SLF4J, which is what we imported in. So the way you create a logger instance, instead of using new keyword, you use a logger factory dot get logger, and you can pass in a class for the logger. So that's the option we're going to choose. So retrieve token dot class, and now we have a logger object that we can use to write logs to. And I guess a quick note, this is a class level logger, so all of our log statements should reference our class that the logger was used in. So it can be a way to filter our log messages. All right, next piece. Why don't we go ahead and, instead of doing system.out.println, we can do logger.debug. So here's all of the different log levels. So you have info, debug, trace, error, warn, and fatal is not one of them. So we'll do debug for this message. And log levels and logging is more of an art than a science sometimes. So sometimes you need to be cognizant that logging can have a performance impact and it can have a cost impact associated with it. So you're paying for size of memory, size of files, things like that. So if you're writing up all of your logs a lot, that's going to take up more size. It's going to be a little bit slower potentially, those kinds of concerns. So you want to be aware of what level you're logging things and what data you're logging things. Another thing is you don't want to log personal information that can be a security risk. So I don't want to log like a debug, this is your social number kind of thing, and then have all of our users hit our service and print out their social security number. That'd be a big security issue. So just be aware when you write applications on what level you're logging at, what kind of data you're logging to mitigate all of that risk. So for me, this is more of a debug thing. So if we're trying to triage or figure out what's going on, I want to see if we got a successful token. I don't want the full thing still. I don't want that security implication. So I just log the first few characters. And then this will give me an indication if my logging, if I got a successful token for this call. So let's go ahead and do logger.info up here and just be a message saying we got into this method call successfully. So we can say beginning retrieve token invocation. All right, so this is a good one, even at info level, to say we got into this method, we're going to invoke a outside service. So that would be good to do. And then here, logger.info as well, saying that we successfully, or it may not have a successful return. So let's say end of retrieve token invocation. This will just tell us that we are exiting our method, and that should be it for in here. So we have a couple logging statements. We have our dependency added in here. Let's go to our test controller up here. So this is our endpoint where we can invoke to test our service. And let's go ahead and put some logging around this call. So similar to retrieve token, this is going to be a constant private static final logger equals logger factory dot get logger test controller dot class. Alt enter for the imports. So we have our logger. So let's come in here and do logger dot. I'm thinking for here, I want to do a warn level. Because even in production, if I don't want to have info level logging in production, so I don't want all those extra logs, I still want to have a warn level that somebody's invoking our test services endpoint, and that may be unexpected. So I know I can invoke it whenever I want to test things, but I would want to know if other people in the world are invoking this endpoint, because that's sort of going to be unexpected behavior for me. I mean, you guys can feel free to invoke it all you want, but you know, I would want to be notified of that. So we'll say REST endpoint invoked / test services. All right. And let's go ahead and copy this warn message down here. And for this message, let's go ahead and log out our result object. So we'll say test services endpoint result, and print out the result string. So this way in the logs I can see which test cases passed and failed if I invoke this service. I want to go back to logs to check what's going on. I have that ability to now. All right. So I don't think I want any other logging statements in this class. That should give me a little bit of logging to tell me what's going on. So let's go ahead and run the unit test for retrieve token. So I'm going to right click the class, and I did run the class. And I believe we should see our info level logging and debug level logging. Not sure about debug. I think it's going to print out still. Let's see what we got. Alright, so this is our info level logging now. Beginning retrieve token invocation. We see that message. We see the timestamp now, and the level, and the class that invoked it. If you recall, with just a system.out.println, I'll just do that here. System.out.println. If we had done the same statement in a print line, we did not have the timestamp and other metadata for that string. And I'll show that here in a moment. So run this test case again, and we would see two print statements, but only one having the metadata. So here's the log message with extra information, and this is just a print line statement. So our logger seems to work fine. So that's all we have to have for the logging for local development. Let's go ahead and configure our logs a little bit. So going back to our GitHub reference here, they have an example logback XML file, and this is the configuration for our logger. So, and we'll probably need the other dependency as well. So let's go ahead and get the dependency. So we'll copy that and put it in our dependencies list. Go ahead and copy where we were able to get this from. And I was able to resolve successfully, it looks like. We haven't needed any property files yet for our application, but this one will have a configuration file. Let's get that set up. So back under main, source main, want to right click, new directory called resources. For me, IntelliJ already seen this as a resources type of directory, just out of convention. And what's going to happen, even with IntelliJ, it should load any of these resources in the class path if needed, or into the context when it starts up. So I want to say new file. This would be logback.xml. Go over to our repo reference and go ahead and just copy this configuration and put in here. We'll go through here and see what all this is doing real quick. So this is the timestamp pattern they'll use, and that's fine. We don't need to tweak that. Hard-coded log group name. So let's go ahead and have this match our setup. So this is over here, auto trader. And this should be the group name in AWS Cloudwatch. And we'll look at that here in a few minutes or the next video, depending on how long this will take. We're going up to 30 minutes. So if this works, we'll commit what we have and have it build and probably start up a new video with the AWS portion of it. All right, so auto trader, this will match our package up here. Stream name, that's fine. As a timestamp to make these unique, that's fine. So this will probably need to be US East 1 for me. So I am in the Ohio region. I believe that's US East 1. This will probably need to be whatever region you guys have your code in. So if you have a different region, you might need to look up what the region code is for that. For our flush time, let's go ahead and bump this down a bit and make sure it writes every 10 seconds. That way you can start to see logs a little bit quicker. So here we can, looks like, specify how long we want to keep the logs for. I don't want to do infinite. I would assume that's going to have a cost at some point, keeping all those logs. So let's just keep logs for 7 days. Keep it for a week. And once we get to production, that's going to change. But for now, we don't want those extra costs. And the rest of this is probably fine. This is the pattern that's going to log things at, and all that is fine. So let's go ahead and run our unit test again. And this, I don't recall for sure if we have to duplicate the resources in our test package. It could pick up this XML configuration, so we might see this format a little bit different, but we will see in a moment. All right. So yeah, so our logback configuration worked fine. It had the new format. So this is our timestamp now, which is basically this guy. This is how it did all of the format here. So the thread, the level, the logger, so on and so forth. This is a couple of the logging statements that we put in. So that all worked fine. Something I do notice, it only outputs logs for our class. So I think for now that'll be fine. At some point we might want all of the other libraries its own logging, so all of the Spring logs, things like that, in case we need to figure out why the context didn't come up, for instance. That'll probably be thrown all the way up to our classes anyways, but we will cross that bridge when we come to it if we need those logs. Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and commit this all to our code commit. So git status, git add dot, git commit -m, we'll say added Logback Framework, and git push. There we go. So our build should be kicked off now. I will probably go ahead and end this video, and we'll see how the AWS side looks in their next video. So thank you for watching this. If you found this helpful, let me know. If you could, just subscribe, like, comment below what you thought of the video, and hopefully y'all were able to learn a few things, and we now have a logging framework for our application. So thank you all, and have a good night.